Okay, hey everybody, Teching and Barry back again, and oh, we're at a different angle this time. Yeah, the camera's a little bit more to the right than it usually is. You can kind of make out my Dr. Stone blanket there. You got Ruri, you got Chrome, you got Kaseki. Who else do we got in there? Let's see if we get Senku. No, we don't need to have Senku there. Okay, there we go. There. If you've never read Dr. Stone, which I couldn't recommend enough, Ruri, Chrome, and Kaseki, those are basically the three main characters of the manga. That's pretty much it. Okay, that was the intro. Now we get to talk about the Whip Lady. I'm really excited for this one, as you could tell. Everyone was like, oh yeah, Teching, last chapter was great. We got Garp, Kobe's doing stuff. What are the deets on the Whip Lady? We need to know what's up with this Whip Lady. All right, I got the deets. Don't worry. All right, deets on the Whip Lady, all right? Her name is Kujaku. She is a Rear Admiral in the Marines. She is the granddaughter of Otsuru, the great staff officer, the Vice Admiral that is like kind of along the same rank as like Garp and Sengoku, very legendary figure in the Marines. They all joined together a long time ago. So she's Otsuru's granddaughter. Very interesting. And she's the user of the Muchi Muchi no Mi, which of course is the Whip Whip fruit, making her a taming human, okay? And that's actually the first thing we're going to talk about because the translation of that varies. I've heard taming human, I've heard training human, and I've heard discipline human. Okay. Actually, you know what? Before we even get into the breakdown of, like, the kanji, I just want to talk about the fact that in the last, little while of One Piece, okay, in the last chapter we got Kujaku, the discipline woman who takes a whip, which, by the way, if you have a whip, I don't have a whip. I have an extension cord, which can kind of be used like a whip, but should not be for safety reasons, so I'm just going to put that over there right now. She likes to whip buildings and kind of just, talk very brutally to them. She was, like, making fun of the building's faces, and just, that's not cool. And then, we also had a character that, not really so much like a dominatrix, but we have Doll, who was just introduced a short time ago, right? Doll, who's the Vice Admiral in charge of G14. So, I don't know if Oda's like, I'm just like, oh, this is my type, and I'm just putting that into the manga. We also had, during Impel Down, we had the dominatrix lady. What was her name? Domino! Wait, no. Domino was not the dominatrix lady. I mean, she might have been into that. Who knows? She probably was. But Sadie, yeah, that's what we're talking about here. So now we have 4 ladies. We have 4 women in One Piece. We got Sadie-chan. We got Domino, Domino, dominatrix. I get it. That makes sense now. We have Doll, probably, and we also have Kujaku now. So, I don't know. There's a little running gag that Oda's going with there. But no, moving back, okay, to the name of the fruit, all right? Because she's the user of the Whip Whip fruit, but that doesn't make her a whipping human. I mean, that would just be silly. Also, it would be confusing. Does she control whips or does she control whipped cream? And that's already Opera's devil fruit. That started off as a joke, and then I realized halfway through that, wait, no, there actually is a user of a whipped cream devil fruit in this story, and it's Opera. Is Opera dead? Because that was one of those things where I think he died at the end of Totland, but he might have been still alive, so the whipped cream devil fruit might be out there somewhere. Blackbeard might be definitely going after that one next. I mean, he's going to want his hands on the whipped cream devil fruit, absolutely. But I think Opera is still alive. But no. That's like a thing with a lot of devil fruits. Sometimes they line up, like when Luffy ate the Gamu Gamu no Mi, the rubber fruit, he became a rubber human. I mean, later we find out it wasn't actually the Gamu Gamu no Mi, but close enough. So sometimes the name of the fruit is the same as the title of what kind of human you become with the power. But other times it's not, like with Law's fruit that I have back here, the Op fruit. So Law ate the Op fruit, but he did not become a Operation Human. I think the official title is Free Modification Human. Another good example is actually just in the last chapter as well, chapter 1080, which you have the reveal of Vasco Shot's Devil Fruit ability, which is the Glug Glug fruit, making him a liquor human, okay? So the onomatopoeia glug, it's just like to drink, so like glug glug glug, like I'm drinking something. I don't think it necessarily refers to liquor or alcohol specifically, but nonetheless, he is a liquor human specifically for that type of ability, okay? So with Kujaku, she is the user of the Whip Whip fruit, but the kanji is Cho Kyo. Okay, choke you. Okay. Anyway, this can refer to training animals just in general in like a circus or like, a zoo, training them to do tricks. More brutally, on like the animal cruelty side of it, it could also refer to breaking an animal, like, breaking an animal in so that they will obey you. So that's a little bit more brutal side of it there, but it can kind of mean both things. Chokyoshi means animal trainer. So the idea here is that that's the basis of her abilities. Okay, so I would say probably taming human or training human. I like taming human better. It also reminds me of that Yu-Gi-Oh card, Shadow Tamer. So that's basically Kujaku right there. Yeah, Shadow Tamer right there. I was going to use Shadow Tamer actually for the thumbnail of this, but instead, Iori, who is an amazing artist, and I'll put all of his links below, he actually did this really cool artwork of Kujaku already, which I had to crop a little bit in the thumbnail because, booba. But other than that, it worked out fantastic, And he also drew a lot of really cool artwork, but my favorite is the one he drew of Nami, inspired by Journey to the West. So Nami is riding on Zeus with the climb attack that's like the extending pole, and she's dressed like Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. So, yeah, I like that. I like it. Yuri's stuff is always really good. So make sure to check out his Twitter and all of his art below. So, okay. Anyway, though, going back to that, I would say taming human would be better. All right. So a couple things about the nature of this ability. Okay. She, first of all, has like a katana, like in terms of a katana, handle, the hilt, and then the guard. But instead of a blade, it's a whip. So I have to question right out of the gate here, like, is this just a specially made weapon, like a whip that has just the hilt of a katana? Or is a special ability of the fruit to turn something into a whip so you can actually use the power? All right. Maybe a prerequisite is you have to have a whip on you or else it doesn't work. But the thing is, like, with a lot of devil fruits that requires some kind of, extra thing to work, sometimes they have the ability to just summon that thing in order to use it, okay? And there's, like, different categories with this. Like, I was going down the list. So some of them, like, Hina, and we're actually going to talk about Hina a little bit later, but Hina has the ability of the cage fruit, all right? So she summons cages. In that case, the cages are actually part of her body. She summons the cages out of her body. Ivankov has the hormone fruit, and Ivankov needs to inject the hormones into somebody with a syringe. But Eva doesn't actually need to have a syringe. The syringes are his fingernails that are created with the ability. Likewise, Inazuma ate the snip fruit using scissors. Inazuma doesn't actually need to carry around a pair of scissors. He becomes the pair of scissors, okay? But then we have other devil fruits like Leo's stitch ability, where Leo can stitch people to various objects or stitch them together using his devil fruit, but he needs a sewing needle to make that work, to actually make the incisions. So you question, can Leo just create a sewing needle whenever he wants, or does he have to physically have a sewing needle on him in order to make use of the ability? Like, if Leo did not have a sewing needle, he could not use the power of the stitch fruit. Also, another ability that's sort of similar to this, and it's kind of interesting because she is Kujaku's grandmother, is Otsuru. So Otsuru has the ability of the Washu no Mi, or the Wash fruit. This was a power that I noted before. In my opinion, is one of the weirdest, if not the weirdest abilities in all of One Piece, because the power embodies laundry. It doesn't embody water or soap, not like Khalifa's devil fruit embodies soap. No. Suru's wash fruit is specifically laundry is her superpower, turning people into wet pieces of laundry and hanging them out to dry on a clothesline with clothing pins tacked on them. So that makes you wonder, and we saw this at Marineford. Suru's just hanging out at Marineford, kind of observing the battle, and then a bunch of pirates go to attack her, like, we're gonna kill you, old lady, and then Osuru's just like, huh? And then she just, boom, like that, activates her ability, and she's like, you're a million years too young to be facing off against me, boys. Like, she's just way too powerful. But then you just see a clothesline just appear behind her with clothing pins pinning the pirates that have become laundry, and it like washes the evil out of their hearts. So it's a very dangerous ability for a lot of pirates. But then it makes you wonder, wait a second, did her ability, because her ability is literally laundry, did her ability create the clothesline and the clothing pins in order to pin the pirates to the clothesline? Like, it's such a weird power, right? But maybe it's like that with Kujaku. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe that is a custom-made weapon that the Marines provided for her, or she made herself. But I also find it really interesting. It's just a normal katana, and whenever she activates the ability, the blade physically turns into a whip. And even if she did not have the katana, like let's say the weapon got knocked away from her or something, I like to think that, you know, oh, you can't do anything now. I like to think she could use, like, maybe her hair. Like, her hair turns into a whip, and she whips, you know, the structures that way in order to activate her ability, or maybe even her arm. Her arm turns into like a noodle, like a whip arm, and she uses that. You know, it could be something like that. I like that idea, right? But just a couple of things to think about. Also, another one, Brûlée. Charlotte Brûlée has the mirror fruit, but she doesn't need to actually carry physical mirrors around. That's actually an interesting case where she can use regular mirrors for her ability if she wanted to, but then she can also summon mirrors whenever she wants. She doesn't have to physically carry them around, but she can use them. That makes you wonder, like with Inazuma. Inazuma can turn into scissors. He doesn't need to have a physical pair of scissors, but could he? If Inazuma picked up a pair of regular scissors, could he use his ability and, like, cut through, like, ground like it was fabric just with, like, a regular pair of scissors through his ability? Curious questions to ask, okay? Well, anyway, that's just the setup, though, and the weapon that she uses. What does the ability actually do? Well, it has the ability to bend certain objects to her will. Now, the way she does it is, you know, maybe there's other ways to go about this, but the way she did it in the last chapter was she whipped the crap out of a building while hurling insults at the building. Like, oh my God, such a dirty building. Oh my God, yeah, look at all those windows. Yeah, you're a building. You're gonna do what I say. And, yeah, I'm sure it was very confusing, slash maybe arousing to a lot of the pirates that were around. But anyway, after she whipped the buildings themselves began to move to her orders. So she ordered the buildings to go and entrap all of the pirates in the center square at Hachinosu, and the buildings slowly began to move. Even though buildings are not conscious, they don't have their own will. So that makes me wonder, like, does she even need to be insulting the buildings? I think the ability could probably work if you just issued the orders. Like, whatever she whips and then gives the order to, it will carry out the order to the best of its ability. Actually, no, not even to the best of its ability, beyond its physical ability. Buildings cannot move under their own power. Her whipping them is what gives them the ability to move. So literally, I have to wonder, what is the extent of this? Could she whip a rock and be like, rock, oh, you dirty rock, look at all the minerals you're made out of. Fly up into the sky and crush that dude. And the rock is just, okay, mistress, and just flies up into the air and slams down on somebody. Like, the idea that she can whip a building and the buildings are moving under their, like, under a power beyond what they're capable of kind of makes it like maybe she could command something to jump up in the air and fly. Now, I'm sure she could not, like she can't, like, whip a rock and be like, bleed, rock, stone, bleed, you know, and just like, yes, mistress, cracks open and blood begins to splurt out. I don't know, like, there's limits with that, but let's take it at face value from what she displayed in the last chapter. She whips inanimate objects, she gives them an order, as long as the order is, once again, I don't want to say within reason, because asking a building to follow your orders and move through town is not really reasonable, but I guess as long as it doesn't hurt the laws of physics too much, yeah, sure, you could do it. All right, fine. Yeah, now, this ability has a lot of comparisons. A lot of people noted the similarities to the Kibi no Mi, which is Otama's devil fruit from, you know, Wano, where her ability is to create the Kibi dongos and then feed them to animals, and when the animals, or the smile users, and if a smile user or an animal eats the dongo, they will obey Otama for essentially an entire month, where they'll listen to whatever orders she gives. Now, in the case with Otama's Kibi no Mi, that ability worked on living animals. This ability so far has only seemed to be working on inanimate objects. However, I find it interesting because the basis of the fruit is training an animal like a circus performer would, okay? So since that's the whole basis for the ability, I feel like it should work on animals, just in a different way that Otama's ability works, okay? Otama's, they're both manipulating the animal to their own will, you know, like a wild tiger that's about to devour Otama. She feeds it the dango, and then the tiger all of a sudden becomes a cute, lovable kitten that will obey whatever Otama orders around, okay? And it's kind of like casting the friends spell in D&D, where you cast friends, and then, like, that person will, like, look at you as, like, a longtime acquaintance. Like, oh, hey, how you been? It's been forever, you know? I'm your friend. I'll listen to you, right? Okay, in the case with this ability, the Whip Whip fruit, if it could work on animals, it wouldn't be probably so much that animal becoming your friend or an ally. If the animal perceives you as an enemy, it probably would still perceive you as an enemy after being whipped. It would just, you know, have to do whatever order. It's actually more similar to Breed's ability from one of the One Piece filler arcs, the one right after Dressrosa with Caesar in Law, because Breed had the Peto Peto no Mi, the pet fruit, where he was able to attach a collar to any living thing and then issue it an order, and the collar, like, forced the living being to obey. Even if they did not want to. So, like, the Kung Fu Dugongs and everything were bound. Luffy and Law were bound. And Breed could not make them use their Devil Fruit abilities, but he could make them fight, like, physically, okay? And they chose not to. Like, I don't want to hurt you, Law. I don't want to hurt you either, Luffy, but they have to fight anyway. That might be something a little bit more similar to this. Also, some similarities to Big Mom's fruit, the Soul fruit work as well, because you're kind of giving... I don't even want to say you're giving sentience to the buildings. I don't think the buildings have sentience. I think it's just like whatever she whips with that whip, whipping with a whip, yes, has to, like, obey the order, okay? Maybe it's easier to use it on inanimate objects because they do not have a will of their own. Maybe using it on animals. Maybe, actually, you know what's interesting? What if Kujaku is against mistreatment of animals? You know, like, she really is against mistreating animals, so even if she could use her ability on animals, she refuses and instead will only use it on inanimate objects. That would be good on you, Kujaku. Maybe that is the case. I mean, it's like, oh, I could use it on animals, but I'm not going to force animals. It's a very cruel ability. Look at Breed. He was an asshole, right? So it's just like, yeah, I don't want to be like that guy. No, screw that. You know, I'm just going to use my ability on inanimate objects, and it'll be fine, right? Okay, yeah, good. Actually, going along with Breed's Peto Peto no Mi, which was able to work on animals as well as, like, humans, could her ability work on humans? Because what if she's against mistreatment of animals, but when it comes to, like, pirates, I mean, she is a Marine after all. She'd be like, pirates, I don't really care. And actually, at the end of the last chapter, seemed to indicate, because she was whipping the buildings were surrounding Blackbeard's crew, they noticed her, and they're like, what's a Marine doing over there whipping a building and tossing insults at it? I wish she would toss insults at me. It's like, it's not the time for this, Dave. And then she looks over, and she's just like, oh, haven't you ever seen a Marine before? Oh, teehee, it's whatever, ara ara. You guys look cute. You know what I mean? So it seemed to imply that she was either flirting with the pirates or she was going to attack them, okay? Now, whether that means that she attacks them by whipping inanimate objects and like, hey, building, attack that guy, you know, obey your mistress, attack them. And then the building is just like, okay. And the building just falls on the pirates. Could be something like that. Or she could, like, whip one of the pirates and, like, now turn around and fight for me. And just like, okay. And that's, like I said in the review, that's very similar to Dot S's ability from One Punch Man, who she's a monster that is very clearly a dominatrix, super dominatrix mommy in One Punch Man. And then she, like, whips characters and then they, like, obey her and, like, they're forced to fight for her will, something like that. Also, I mean, not really the same kind of thing with Boa Hancock's Mero Mero no Mi. It's similar in that, well, people would listen to Boa without her using the ability. They would just kind of listen to her whatever because Boa is, like, the most beautiful woman in the world, right? So her ability turns them into stone, doesn't make them obey her. So this is the kind of one that does do that. Honestly, Boa could have had the Whip Whip fruit or the Love fruit, either or. I think Boa could have made it work, you know what I mean? Yeah, definitely. This one might have actually been more effective if Boa had this. I don't know. I also thought about the idea, what if the basic power of the fruit is only being able to control animals or humans, like the Peto Peto no Mi, basically making that fruit canon, and the fact that Kujaku was able to control the buildings inanimate objects, maybe she has awakened to the Whip Whip Fruit's true power, which is like one of the strongest awakenings in all of One Piece. Let's be honest here, right? Considering that she would be a taming human, I think that would make more sense for her awakening rather than turning the surrounding area into whips. It would be she be able to control living, like not living, unliving objects in order. Like that just seems like if you ate a devil fruit that was the Whip Whip Fruit and it turned you into a taming human, and it uses the kanji for an animal trainer, like in a circus. That's the basis for the ability, but your power only worked on inanimate objects. That would be a little weird at the offset if that was the baseline for the ability. It would make more sense that you could control animals, and then later on, if you grew to the power, if you awakened potentially, then you could control inanimate objects. Because that seems way more OP. For one thing, there's way more inanimate objects surrounding you. If it's a rock, a mailbox, or a bakery, this woman could make bakeries attack you, okay? Devastating power, right? That makes it way more efficient and powerful rather than controlling animals as well. That would be strong too, but you'd have to have an animal next to you at all times, or you can like whip other humans and force them to fight each other. I mean, the potentials for this ability are pretty damn high, is what I have to say. Let's talk a little bit about Kujaku herself, though, because there's some interesting stuff to note here. So, Kujaku, her name is just, it means peacock in Japanese. Oda has this thing, and I don't think I've ever referenced it on the channel before. It's just one of those little side things, those little quirky things that Oda likes to do. He likes to name a lot of female characters after birds. It's just a running thing, and so I'll just mention it here. So, Kujaku is named after a peacock. By the way, did I ever tell you the story of the time I was attacked by a peacock at the Central Park Zoo in New York City? I think it was in New York City. Yeah. Did I ever tell you that story? I did? Oh, okay. No worries then. But anyway, Otsuru, her grandmother, is named after a crane. This also applies to Tsuruojo, who is Otsuru of Wano, who is Kineemon's wife. Okay, they're both named after cranes. I like to think that Tsuruojo is named after the red crown crane, or the Japanese crane, because Wano is based off Japan, and Otsuru might be based on another type of crane. Okay, because there's a whole, that's all, I think, that of crane facts. I think crane is the family of birds, and there's a bunch of different types of cranes. Then there's Isuka, who's also named after a bird. Isuka, or Nailing Isuka, is Ace's marine rival in the Ace Light novels, if you've read those. And that's a red crossbill is what she's named after. Even Tashigi is named after a snipe. Hibari, who just showed up, Hibari is named after a Eurasian skylark, so there's the naming there. So yeah, Oda just really likes that. Not every single woman in One Piece is named after a bird. Like, I don't think Nami is connected to a bird. I don't think Hina is named after a bird. Robin, I don't think, is named after a bird. No, I don't think Robin's named after a bird, no. Now, of course, Robin is named after robins, which are, by the way, the single most common bird where I live. This is the American robin right here. This bird, if you live in West Central PA, or in this version of this version of the country, this version of the nation, you know, there are a lot of parallel Americas out there, but no, if you live in this particular region of Pennsylvania, this part of like Northeast America, this is the bird you will see all over the place. It is ubiquitous here, okay? Anyway, that's just a little note on the naming conventions there. But granddaughter of Otsuru. Now, Otsuru right now is 76 years old. She's a couple years younger than Garp. Garp is 78. I think Sengoku's 79. They all joined the Marines together. So if, like Garp is Luffy's grandfather, and Luffy's like, right now he's 19 years old. So we don't know Kujaku's age. I like to think she's a little bit older than Luffy. Like, she's in her early 20s. She is a rear admiral, which is a high rank, but you also have to regard the fact that like Sword is like a special tactical unit of the Marines that are really powerful, right? And also, she is Otsuru, the great staff officer's granddaughter. You know that she was trained personally, probably by her mom. We don't know who her mom was. Her mom and her grandmother to become a great Marine, okay? So, like, that's like looking at Luffy. Like, Luffy right now at age 19, what would be the Marine rank that Luffy would have if he was a Marine at this point in his life? it would at least be Vice Admiral. Maybe Admiral's pushing it a bit, but like Vice Admiral easily. Okay, so the fact that Kujaku, let's say Kujaku is the same age as Luffy, like around 19, 20 years old, and she's a Rear Admiral in the Marines, that makes sense given the fact that like a lot of these characters are super powerful, okay? So that's the situation with her there. I really like this idea because Suru has not really been focused on all too much. We know she had a rivalry with Doflamingo. She had a part of her Marine platoon were all women. Okay, she had led like an all-women group of Marines, okay? And she just seems like a really interesting character, like the backstory with her and stuff, because we know a little bit about Garp and Sengoku, not as much. I feel like that's going to be revealed later. I would honestly love to see a flashback involving Garp, Sengoku, and Suru. Like when they started, like when they joined the Marines and everything like that, and how they knew each other. Like we'll probably get that if Garp ever gets a flashback, which I think is very likely. Hell, we might even get it in the next chapter, who knows. If we ever get a Garp flashback, that might focus on Dragon, Dragon's wife as well as Garp's wife as well. But I think Sengoku and Otsuru are also going to be major players there, okay? But since we know about Kujaku and we know about Otsuru, I would also like to know about, Kujaku's mother and Otsuru's daughter, who's probably right now, if she's still a Marine, she's around somewhere. She'd probably be in like her 40s or something, also named after a bird. So that's something. Comment down below on what Otsuru, her daughter, and Kujaku's mother would be named after if she ever shows up as a character, because we're revealing her family line. You might as well, right? Absolutely. Also, if Doflamingo ever shows back up again, they might be connected to that in some way. So, but yeah, anyway, I think that's the video. Everything I have for you anyway. Now we can move on to some turtle facts, some turtley facts. And I actually have an intro for this one that was sent to me by Torrey. So thank you so much, Torrey. Let's go, turtle facts.
Time for some turtle facts. Time for some, turtle facts. We're going to talk about turtle facts.
All right, today on Turtle Facts, we're going to be talking about the leatherback turtle. Okay, so turtles in general are evolutionarily very old, meaning they really haven't changed all that much from millions and millions of years ago. In some cases, as with the leatherback turtle, hasn't really changed all that much since the time of the dinosaurs, 65 million plus years ago, right? It's just that turtles are peak performance. Evolution reaches turtle, and it's just like, yeah, you're good. We really don't need to improve on anything here. You got a shell, you got eyes, you got a mouth. Yeah, you're good. You're set for a while, right? So the leatherback turtle, very old evolutionarily, also very strong swimmers. Every year they travel somewhere around 10,000 miles as they migrate around the seas. They can dive super deep, dive deeper than most marine animals, actually, and it's all the way down by 4,000 feet depth. Can you imagine that? 4,000 feet, like the pressure, and they're capable of doing that. Their shells also look really cool and like the neat little shape on the back of them there. Their main prey that they consume are actually jellyfish, and their throats and mouths have actually evolved to the point where they have like spiny little things to like protect them. So they'll go around the sea and devour jellyfish and eat them. But this also creates a problem, as with human pollution, with a lot of things in the ocean, because, a lot of plastic bags end up in the ocean, and what do plastic bags probably look like to a turtle underwater, and he sees that it looks exactly like a jellyfish. So the turtle will go and consume and get the plastic all jammed up in its throat and mouth, and it's not a good time. So yeah, there's issues with that. But yeah, that's the leatherback turtle. So there's your turtle fact for the day. Nice and simple. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. I think we'll be back to the original angle. I had to move my camera the other day to do a live stream where I put together a bunch of chairs, so got to get it back in line. All right, that's good. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Teching, signing out.